Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening and welcome to the last episode of Black Authors Matter TV for the month of June. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight, along with my co-host,
Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Good evening, everyone.
And if you're wondering why we're wearing crowns, this is what we do on the show that's between our birthdays. Our birthdays are only 9 days apart. So
Yes.
My birthday was on Friday and Rhonda's birthday is on this coming Sunday. And so we wear our birthday crowns to celebrate together. So we have another amazing show for you tonight and an amazing lineup. All of the guests are new except one. And so we'll get to learn about their work. And so the first guest has logged in twice. So I don't know which one he wants to be on. I'm going to do both and then he can click off whichever one he doesn't want. But hopefully there won't be any background noise because that's one of the challenges when you have two devices logged on. One of them is still going and we don't want to have background noise. So our first guest is I'm gonna try Chinedu Achebe, but I don't know if I said it right or not. So I may have been totally wrong. And
I think it's Chinedu Achebe.
Achebe.
I think he'll tell us
I
whether
thought
we're
it was
right.
like a key. But anyway, he's gonna tell us how to pronounce his name. And so welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. And can you tell us your name?
Chinedu Achebe.
Oh,
Achebe.
it's close. Achebe.
She was closer than I was.
Oh, good.
Well, I won't forget it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, welcome to the
one
show.
Of those names.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said it's one of those names.
It is, and the first and the last name. I think we got the first name right. It's more phonetic in terms of it sounds like it's spelled. But anyway, welcome to the show and congratulations on your accomplishments.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
You received an award for one of your books. The award was the 2023 Independent Press Award.
Yeah, for
So the Miseducation of, and you can pronounce that name too.
Obi Fanye.
Okay. Obi Fanye. Okay. Now tell us about that award. I don't know if that's one I've heard of.
Oh, it's mostly for independent authors. So it's an indie author award. So they recognize a lot of different indie authors. So
okay, because there is one called the Indie Author Award.
There's
called that. And then there's one called the Indie, I think it's Indie Excellent Authors Award.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Excellence is in there because I was a finalist for one of my books and that for one of my children's books for that.
Okay, well, congrats on that.
Thank you.
Is this someone's birthday? Y'all are wearing
we're wearing our birthday crown. Okay. Our birthdays are 9 days apart. So every year in June in the show where that's between our birthdays, we wear our crown. So my birthday was Friday, June 20th, and Rhonda's is Sunday, June 29th.
Okay, well, happy birthday, belated happy birthday.
Thank you. That's something that we share in common. And that was kind of just coincidental. We didn't realize that until I think the first June that we had the show.
Right.
And that was when we realized that our birthdays were so close together. But
that's awesome.
That might explain why we're compatible. Although, as I told Rhonda, me and Cancer females, sometimes there's friction. But I don't have friction with Rhonda. It must be because she's at the beginning of the Cancer. She's not,
so it depends on the
Yeah, I'm not the July Cancer.
Yeah.
Okay, so July Cancer. Okay. All right.
So anyway, enough about us. Let's hear about your book. And one thing that you mentioned in your bio, you're Nigerian American.
Yeah.
And that's your name is Nigerian, I'm assuming. And also you were born in Richmond, Virginia.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that's close to my hometown of Newport News, Virginia.
Okay, yeah, VA. Yeah, I was there for about I was there about 6 years. So I was born there. My dad, he was a professor, so we moved all over. So we moved to Connecticut, then moved to Pennsylvania, and then
Okay.
moved to he got a position in San Antonio, and then so I was there in high school, and then when I started for college, I moved to Houston, went to U of H, and I've been in Houston since. I haven't left.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm in Houston, so that's where I live.
Okay, yeah.
For many years. That's where the show was broadcast from.
Okay,
And
well,
so
it's good. It's good to represent H-Town.
yeah, I didn't realize that until I looked at your stuff that you were in. Well, you're in Missouri City. That's
just Southwest Houston. That's all.
It is. It is. It is.
Just Southwest Houston. That's all.
It's an hour from where I live, though.
Oh, Houston.
Where
are you at?
And no traffic. I'm far northwest. So FM 1960.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
It's like a whole nother state. Really. This is true.
No, Houston, you feel like you're on the north side. Like people like you on the north side. I'm like, only when I gotta go to IH. Outside of that, I don't really go to the north side. My job is in Memorial City Mall, so I'm in that area.
Okay,
but,
so all your stuff is on the south side of town.
Yeah, I like to stay on the south side of the city.
I'm the total opposite. I like to stay northwest.
Yeah.
Everything I need is up here.
Well, that's the way the city's built. You don't really have to.
I don't live in Texas, but I do prefer the quieter side of town myself. Like where I live in the DC area, but if you look around, you think I lived in the woods because there's nothing but trees around me, and I'm happy with that because if I want to go party, I can party. When I want to come home and have peace and quiet, I have peace and quiet.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's good. You got your peace, and then if you want to go hang out, go hang out. There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have to go to someplace to hang out.
You got to go to the action.
I have to go to the action. This is true. So, so now tell us about your book. Well, tell us about the one you won the award for first. And are the two books connected?
Well, it's actually 3 books, so I'll give a quick synopsis.
Okay.
The first book was called Blunted on Reality. I wrote that in 2012. I was a big fan of former President Obama, so I was trying to really just write a story of him being his father was Kenyan, and I just wanted to write my own version of it, a version of that time period, and I wanted to discuss things, being a Nigerian American, just how I felt like even though it's still part of I'm Black, but then that side of the Black experience. And sometimes now it's a little bit more, discussed and on TV and music, but back then it really wasn't. So I just really wanted to tell my own story. So I really wasn't trying to do anything. I was like, well, let me just write my story and it took place around the end of 2008 when he won through his first year in office. So I didn't think I was writing anymore. So then, a couple years later, I was like, okay, maybe I'll do a sequel. So the sequel took place in 2012, which was his re-election campaign. And, and so it took place with him. And at this time he was married to his best friend, one of his friends from a law school that he married. They had a child. So during that time, I reintroduced, he had an ex-girlfriend that came into the picture that his wife didn't know that they kind of had a thing. And there was a secret from his father. His dad had a child that he didn't tell the family about. So that was what, so that's what the synopsis of the miseducation of O.B. Fani. So Blunt on Reality was more just a celebration of President Obama, his first year, how everybody felt, and just from that perspective. When It All Falls Down was mostly, it takes place in 2020, and they just it starts actually the day Kobe Bryant died. So I kind of wanted to write about that beginning of 2020 when things are like, we thought like, wow, this is Kobe died. This is as crazy as you thought it was, just the manner it is. And we didn't know that we had a whole COVID and, racial unrest and presidential election. So, I reintroduced those characters back for that period and just living life during that time. And so that's kind of the synopsis of the third book, When It All Falls Down.
Okay,
That's a lot of emotion wrapped up into one book.
It is.
Yeah, it was an emotional year for everybody. It was an emotional
2020 was
year. Like we all, it's crazy, but it was 5 years ago now.
Yeah, 2020 was kind of like the year of 9/11 in that it was like crazy. It was just some stuff happened that you would just never dream would happen. It just was, and a lot of it was negative. But I forgot that Kobe died. Was it in 2020? Was it like the beginning of 2020?
It was the beginning. Yeah, it was the beginning. It's like January 2020. So
okay, I forgot that kind of, because it was very shocking. To everyone, and sad, and the fact that his daughter, with him too.
Yeah,
the whole thing was just sad and shocking. Yeah. So I have a question about being Nigerian American. Okay. Since you were born here, in the United States, do you still, like, there's a big Nigerian community in Houston. So do you find yourself straddling the two worlds, or do you consider yourself more American than Nigerian, or something else? I'm just wondering.
I think for most of my life, I've been kind of straddling, where the places we lived, outside where I was in Richmond, but I left when I was 6, so I was young, but a lot of the other places were mostly white, and place in Pennsylvania was all white. It was like 96% white. So, and then San Antonio had a black population. So for the most part, till I got to college, I really wasn't around a lot of Nigerians. So outside of Nigeria was inside of, my parents' household. So so when I got to college, I'm like, I'm Nigerian, but I'm black. That's the black experience. It shaped me. It's who I am. So I guess I always say, like, I'm in between both. I understand both communities, and I straddle that line because before I was like, when I was in college, I didn't feel like I was Nigerian enough. And it's like, well, people are like, hey, do you know how to talk? Do you know all this traditional stuff? I'm like, not really.
It's really sad because young black people who grew up maybe in the suburbs, who didn't grow up in the hood, they hear that same thing, that they're not black enough. And then I have a client who is from Jamaica, and she talks about how often Jamaican kids who are born in the United States and don't have the patois, they are often considered not Caribbean enough or not Jamaican enough. And now hearing you telling that same story, that you're not Nigerian enough, it's kind of sad how we put these parameters on each other.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think when I was younger, because I think people have this cultural thing of what it is to be Nigerian. And I think a lot of it is shaped based off of, my parents, they immigrated here. So they have a different experience and a different way they see America. Me, I was born and raised here. So being black has always been who I am. Like when I used to tell my parents, they're like, well, you're Nigerian. I was like, Mom, look, Dad, these people don't know Nigerian is whatever they think, it is. So as soon as they see you, you're black. So I think culturally, I think we're all trying to kind of find that balance. And that when I was younger, it was tougher. As I got older now, I'm comfortable being in both worlds. So when I was younger, 18, I was like, I wanted to fit into a box. And, that's why President Obama, his book, really, Dreams of My Father, really spoke to me, even though he was half black, half white, but I was looking for identity. Like, okay, am I Nigerian? Am I Black American? Like, I thought I had to fit into this kind of box. And then I realized I don't have to fit in the box. I can like my Nigerian music, and I can like my hip hop. I can like the food that my parents ate, and I can like my American food, whatever that is. So I felt like, okay, I don't really have to fit into that. And so, that kind of shaped a lot of my writing. Like I wanted to write about being a Nigerian American, but I also wanted to write about just being American and those similar traits. So it's been a thing that's taken me a while to kind of embrace those two identities, even though people think it's like, hey, you're black, it's all one thing. And I was like, no, because the Black American culture is rich and it has its own identity and its own thing. And even within the Black American culture, there's difference. It depends if you live in the South, in the North, Midwest, and so it has its own nuances with food and all of that, So if you're in New Orleans, it has its own thing. If it's Texas, is different. And then like you said, Jamaica, they have their own culture of food, music. Nigerians have their own. So it's a mixture of all these different things. So but I didn't feel like I was black enough. I didn't know what, like you said, I didn't know what that meant. I just felt like, hey, I'm black. Like, is there something extra I have to have or an experience? I felt like I had it, but I guess, and maybe it's, something that we're all trying to kind of make up, like this is what it is to be black. And we're all black in our own way. It doesn't have to fit into some
we're still
stereotypical box that I think sometimes
we're still individuals.
Yep.
Even though we may fit into a racial group.
Yeah, that's who we are.
So. But we're individual people. So and
yes, that's true.
And how can I say this without sound? You don't look Nigerian, especially. Some people look Nigerian. Seriously. Some people are African and they look African.
But
you just look like a regular brother.
but that is to be Nigerian, because I think if you look at the genealogy, like 25% of Black people in the US came from what was modern day Nigeria. So a lot of people I see like, oh man, they're Nigerian. They're like, nah, man, my parents' family been here my whole life. So we are in essence our tribal, if we break down, we take away the country, we are a part of a certain tribe. There's various tribes that, unfortunately was part of the slave trade. So we all look kind of the same.
That is true. That's true.
Like if somebody didn't know who you were and then they like, okay, and you start talking in Patois or Igbo, people like, oh, I didn't know you was Nigerian. I thought you was Black. So that's the uniqueness of it.
That is true. It's kind of like when I went to New York, not this last time. I went one time for a business trip and I got lost. I was trying to go to a TV station and I had an interview, but I got lost because I took a cab first. The cab the cab circled the block. It took 20 minutes to circle the block. I'm like, I'm going to be late. Let me just get out and walk. So, but I couldn't figure out exactly where it was. And I kept walking up to Black people, asking them an address, and they would speak a different language. They didn't know what I was saying.
They like,
Everybody I walked up
like,
to,
I don't know.
like,
I can't help you.
they could have been Dominican, they could have been African, they could have been Puerto Rican, they could have been the various
like, oh my God.
whatever.
And
So
then
you
it was
like,
gonna rain.
hey.
It looked like it was gonna pour down raining. I finally there was a police officer, he was black, on a horse. I said, surely he can speak English. And he told me where to go. I was only like 4 blocks, but I just couldn't figure out where to go. that reminded me of that when you talked about when you meet somebody and you don't know where they're from. But one of my first cousins did our family tree, the genealogy, and on my dad's side, we're more Nigerian. We have Nigerian roots.
See,
On
I
that.
just
Okay.
said it. See, so you,
Yeah.
yeah. See,
We all have a little African in us. It's just a matter of finding out
where.
which country, which tribe.
Mhm.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I know there was the big year of return when everybody was going to Ghana.
Ghana,
Everybody wanted to be Ghanaian.
yeah. Yeah, and the thing about it is the thing is even when we talk about genealogy, a lot of these countries like Nigeria, Ghana, during the slave trade, those countries were they didn't exist. They were just kingdoms. Like the
Right.
countries were created by the Europeans. So there was just the Yoruba or the Igbos or Asante, the various kingdoms. So it really wasn't. So when people say you're Nigerian, Nigeria has like 250 ethnic groups. So it's more of like it doesn't always say.
The genealogy, you can't tell you what tribe you're from. Yeah,
No,
that
some
I
of them
know
will
of.
tell you like if you're.
Can they?
Yeah, they can tell you the tribe. Some of them are more detailed. They can tell.
Okay.
I haven't taken one, but I know there's people who say they can find out what tribe they're from, and then that'll give you.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay, I haven't taken one either. So now, are your characters in the book? Are they American? Are they Nigerian American?
Yeah, they're all.
Did they mention that in the book? They
and the
you
parents.
missed that.
Yeah, so it's in the book, and you see the thing, but because the parents are immigrant parents, and you kind of see the dialogue with the parents, especially Obi's mom, Ijama. She has her own. She's very traditional, very Bible based, religious, and the characters are kind of more laissez-faire. They're not as they consider themselves spiritual, especially, and not really religious. They don't go to church that much. So the mom's like, why are you guys go to church? Why don't you guys do this? Why don't you do that? So, it's just a, variation of, our society that we are in right now. So, and it could play out in, any community, the Black community, it could be the same way. There are people who are very religious and very strict and about their religion, and then there's people who are more like, hey, I'm good, I got what I need, and that's it. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay, now, did you have another book? Or those are 3? Did you have
those are 3, the only
those
3
are the
books.
3. Okay, it was the one, the miseducation one that caught my
the first
attention.
one was
That was the
Blunted
one you
on
won the
Reality.
prize for.
Yeah.
So what do they have a particular category? Oh, African American fiction. That was what you won it for. Oh, that's really exciting.
Yeah, it was.
A new author, fairly new. That was your second book.
Yeah. So it's pretty good. I mean, you just never know. So I mean, I write to write, people, I put stuff in there, but you just, you really don't know how it works out. And if people give you a claim, that's awesome. But for the most part, the work is, having people read it and say they like it or hate it.
That's the goal of actually reaching your readers and touching your readers. I think sometimes we get caught up in the other accolades, but if you are reaching your target audience and they are receiving your message, then you're successful.
Oh yeah, that's how I take it. As long as I get my audience and I reach the people I need to reach, that's anything else is like, okay, that's cool. But reaching the audiences is very important to me. So
it is. So who's your typical reader? Do you know who your typical reader is?
It could be it's mostly, unfortunately, the men, guys, men, we don't read as much, especially fiction. So it's mostly Black or, African women. Those are mostly the readers of the book. Not to say that men there aren't
No,
readers of
no,
the book.
that's
Men read now.
Well, yeah, but it's just not as, most of the platforms I've been on, who have things are mostly women. Not that men don't, but I know men don't read a lot.
No, I agree with you, but there is a rise in male book influencers. I've been seeing a lot of them on Instagram and on TikTok where they're
Okay.
promoting books.
Okay.
They're promoting reading. They're promoting literacy, and I'm here for it. I love watching their videos.
No, I don't have a problem. No, because I know for me, I mean, this book's fiction. I mean, I know a lot of the stuff I read is mostly, I know guys like nonfiction. So
tend to read nonfiction.
I mostly read
Yeah.
nonfiction. Like,
Now
so
that is true. A lot of guys do like to read nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Like if they're gonna sit down and read, they want to learn something.
yeah,
Yeah,
and see that's how I do my books. Like for me, my book is more like creative nonfiction. So it's mostly it's based off of. I mean, the events in the book are real. Everything is real. It's just I just put different characters in it, and then nonfiction gives me more room to express myself, kind of put certain ideologies out there and through certain characters,
Right.
and trying to talk to different people or talk in different versions the way I want to talk through the characters. So that's how I take it. So.
Do you have a copy of any of your books handy that you can show us?
Oh, that's right.
Okay, this is the new one.
Yes, ma'am.
When It All Falls Down. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a family of 4, I'm assuming.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, maybe I shouldn't assume.
No, it's 4. It's 4. Yeah, it's
okay. Well, it wasn't the number that I was talking about. It was the family. She could have been the other, the side chick and just shown up.
Well, you know what? I got the other book. They had that, so the other book cover has that too. So
okay. Okay.
It has the. I guess I can. Yeah, it has the OB, and then it has his wife, and then it has her name is OB. His wife is Nkechi, and then it has the other side is meant to be Sade, which is his.
Oh, okay. All right. See,
ex-girlfriend. Yeah,
I was close. I was on top of it.
Yeah, so that was the second book. So this book is family.
Now, are your books standalone? Or are they? Do they have to be read in order?
You don't have to. I mean, I kind of write it. Each book I write, I try to bring the reader up to speed. So usually you don't have to read it unless you just want to go back and get the understanding. But for the most part, the books kind of they can be read without reading the other one. But if you just want to be like, hey, I want to know the backstory of how did we get here,
right.
You can go back and read. You can go back and read those books as well.
Okay, well, in our final, really less than a minute, but one of the viewers commented, Tanisha Bennett said that she understands your experience. She's a Panamanian American, and she moved around a lot, and the expectation of living culturally was part of her upbringing. So that's something from one of the viewers. So in the end, we all came from somewhere to get to America. And, the Black experience is different from everybody else's. So, and I don't think we should let people forget that. Our experience, we are not immigrants, the way other people immigrate. We're not. Our background is different. But those who do immigrate, they blend right in if they're from a Black country, like your parents. So anyway.
And I think most people do that. Like, I mean, I think, and I think as people learn the history, because I think sometimes we when people come from other countries that are, predominantly African or Caribbean, race isn't the thing. It's more tribal and stuff. So when they come to America, people's like, you're black. They're like, whoa, I'm not black. I'm this. It's not always
Right, I've heard
meant as an
that.
affront to like, hey, I'm not black. It's like, they don't associate themselves as black because everybody's black. So I think sometimes that's an issue. And then just the history, learning, hey, what is America? What has America been to this? And there's stereotypes of what is Africans, how are they portrayed? What are Black Americans portrayed? So sometimes people think, oh, Black Americans, they're lazy and this and this and this. And that's not the case. Is people have said that, and vice versa with being African. Like when I was African, people were like, hey, do you guys wear clothes? Do people do this? We're like, yeah. Dude, y'all live in free. And it's crazy people said that. And I was like, and a lot of it was Black people. So, and as a kid, you'll be like, well, why are they saying that? But then you realize it's what people have taught and people learn. And as people get older, they learn, that there's people who push that narrative. So it's about just us as people in the diaspora understanding our differences, but also understanding, not trying to break us apart and of that nature. So.
Okay, well, we're at the end of our time. So I'm assuming your books are available wherever books are sold. And
yes, ma'am.
Congratulations on your book series and your award.
I appreciate being on this platform. You guys do a great job of highlighting Black authors, from, I didn't see Bakari Sellers on here, to indie authors. So, and I think that's awesome because the Black, there's a wide range of Black writers and experiences, nonfiction, fiction. So awesome work that you guys are doing with this platform and allowing people like me to have this to have this space. So much appreciated to what you guys are doing, and all the best in everything you guys do. So I really appreciate it. So,
well, thank you so much for the kind words.
Same to you.
I appreciate it. So thank you guys very much.
Okay, good night.
Have a great one.
All right, good night. Y'all take it easy.
You too.
Okay, I didn't mention at the top of the show that we were giving away a book. And so the book we're giving away, or if I didn't tell you which one. So the book we're giving away is is the arc of the book by the author that you see on the screen. And the book is called Black Capitalists. This is an advanced reading copy, so I'm going to be giving this away at the end of the interview based on trivia, like we always do. And so, Dr. Rachel, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, your last name is pronounced, is it pronounced Laryea?
Laryea.
Laryea. I was way, way off. Okay.
No.
Okay. You have a book that's quite interesting, and it's about Black capitalists. I didn't read the whole book, but I did get to read enough parts to pique my interest. And what is your PhD in?
So I have two. One is in anthropology, and the other is in African American studies.
Oh,
well,
okay.
I commend you all. I give you all the commendations in the world, because my one doctorate wore me out, and I said I never wanted to see the inside of another classroom. So I respect you. I have a good friend who also went back for another doctorate. I respect you guys for doing it. I'm good with my one though.
That's real dedication.
It was a lot of reading, a lot of papers, so I'm glad to be done. I don't think I'll go back.
Well, congratulations, though.
A lot
That's
of reading and writing.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was done after my bachelor's, so I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go back to school, and I haven't had a desire to go back since college. But I have doctors in my family, and I admire the dedication and commitment that it takes to do that. It's not easy, it takes a lot of hours and hours of work and dedication.
Thank you.
So your book is about Black capitalist. Now, I was thinking your one of your degrees was in economics. That's why I asked about that. And what made you write on this topic? What really was there impetus? Was there one situation? Was it a collection of experiences? What made you pick that topic?
Yeah, I say there was certainly a collection of experiences, but there was also a culminating moment. But the collection of experiences really started in my childhood, where for as long as I can remember, I was always really interested in the intersection of race and money. And
Mm,
that was really because I found myself, even as a kid, in spaces of privilege that I never felt as though I had authority in. So, for example,
mm,
back in the 80s, my mom immigrated to the US from Ghana, where my family is from, and really hustled to survive and create a life for herself. And by the time she had me and my brother, um, she was able to kind of benefit from an affordable housing program and a lottery system that allowed her to buy her first home here in the States in what was at the time the wealthiest county in Northern Virginia, where I grew up. And so I was in this context of a very wealthy white space, very nuclear in that kind of context. And we were one of the few Black families. And my mom raised two children on her own. And so I was different in every single way. And every kind of correlation that I saw related to wealth was associated with whiteness. And so from a
mm,
young age, it made me wonder, what might it look like to be Black and thriving? And what might be the cost of that? Fast forward, I, through an academic scholarship that, paid my way to go to an all-girls private boarding school for high school that cost $60,000 a year to go to. Again, I was seeing these expressions and models of wealth that were associated with whiteness. I was one of the few Black students there. And again, not there on account of my own financial background or that of my mother's, but on account of my merit and the full ride scholarship that I was on because of my academic performance leading up to that. Um, and then even thereafter, while I was at New York University where I did my undergrad, I was kind of brought up in the Black radical tradition, critical race theory, as a student of those disciplines and those bodies of scholarship. And so I had a lot of preconceived notions and understandings about Black people's relationship to the economic system when you consider the
mm,
history and the creation of capitalism built on our labor, but we were never the beneficiaries of it, and how that's kind of continued into the present moment. And so that was my training and orientation. But I was recruited to work at Goldman Sachs while I was in college. And I had no context for finance, high finance at that. And I was going to dismiss it. But it was my older brother who really kind of encouraged me to rethink that. And he said, just see what they're talking about. Go to the recruitment day and, it could change the trajectory of your life. So I took my brother's advice and, went through the internship process and ultimately worked there full time. But that experience really kind of opened my eyes to how I was seeing Black professionals in Wall Street, some might would call the belly of the beast, and how they were
right,
using the tools of capitalism by being in those spaces to not only, achieve and acquire resources for themselves, but also to acquire resources for their communities who weren't also in that space with them. And I thought what they were doing was so complicated and nuanced. And again, it really challenged so much of my training in undergrad that it made me want to really build a kind of theory and a pragmatic theory at that around it. So, I go to Yale University where I did my doctoral programs, and I came there with the intention to study this phenomenon that I was seeing of Black people using the tools of capitalism in really compelling communal ways. And 2 years into that program, I'll tell you this story, and this is the culminating moment that I knew I wanted to write this book. I was in the Black Studies department, which ironically is located on Wall Street in New Haven, Connecticut. And I was responsible to give a prospectus, basically just a presentation of my work, what I would be researching, et cetera. And so I gave my presentation, And at the end of it, one of my colleagues, who's a brilliant Black studies scholar, she raises her hand and she says, Black capitalists don't exist. At
Wow.
best, they can be financiers, but they can't be capitalists. And I understood why she was saying that, building on this idea that how can you adopt an economic system where you were never and honestly strategically positioned to never benefit from? It creates this kind of identity crisis and makes you kind of reconcile and sit with the tension of, again, all of the kind of racial capitalism and the scholarship that really suggests that capitalism cannot create any positive or productive outcomes for Black people. And it was in that
Right.
moment that I really had this resolve to write the book and see it through, because at a place like Yale University, for a Black scholar who would go on to teach, the future of Black minds and Black scholars and create knowledge, in that moment, she was placing a limitation on what Black life could look like. And to me, that was the major kind of problematic that I saw, because again, it didn't square with the evidence that I had seen of people like Goldman Sachs, of people that became part of my network through working in finance, that I saw how people were doing this differently, how people were engaging in capitalism differently. And so I needed to kind of tell that story to, again, just open the aperture about how we think about these things and these topics when it comes to race and money. And so it started from childhood, but it really crystallized for me throughout those different experiences, and then almost kind of necessitated a requirement I think I had inside myself to really see this through, to challenge the conversation that we've been having around Black people, our community, and how we relate to capitalism.
And that's kind of that really bridges to the question I wanted to ask, because as I'm listening to you, one thing that always hurt my feelings is that we perpetuate the conversation about us being broke, or us being having bad credit, or only white people are rich. We say these things so much, and we try to say it as a joke, but this gets internalized, and we start to really think that if we want to be rich, we want to be white.
Mm-hmm.
Or we believe that I can only get good credit if I go to sleep and wake up as a white man or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that we really need to start changing that conversation. And one thing I enjoy about living here in the DMV is there are so many well-to-do Black people here in Black neighborhoods. These are Black neighborhoods with million-dollar homes.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't see that in a lot of cities. But I've noticed that here, the kids are growing up in better neighborhoods. They're growing up in more affluent neighborhoods, and they're starting to see this as everyday life and not just being the exception to a conversation.
Right, right. And I think that's so spot on, because our beliefs really inform kind of the set of behaviors we think that we have accessible to us. And if our
Right.
beliefs are, in order for me to be wealthy, I need to be white, your behaviors are going to mirror that belief. But if we're presented with the model or just evidence or examples that show that you can be Black and be wealthy,
Mm-hmm.
and do it in a way that's not going to be dependent on the exploitation of others, because it's really important to also keep in mind, again, it just opens our minds and creates space for us to believe differently about ourselves, and believe that we do have agency and power over our financial futures. And a real kind of unlock to
Yes.
living out the financial futures that we want require community, and us to be kind of aligned and unified in shared objectives. And so that becomes a really pivotal and important part of the story, because to your point, we have more Black millionaires in this country than we've ever seen. And so how
Yes.
do we reckon with the reality of that and really try to rupture our mental paradigms about what we can be, what we have access to, and what kind of lives we can live?
Mm. Yeah, a lot of
Love it.
people think that Black capitalism, the term is an oxymoron, and it isn't. And then also some people equate capitalism with exploitation. Um, and that's not the case overall. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And if you are in business, or you're an entrepreneur who wants to start a business, that's capitalism.
Yep.
Because in order for you to stay in business, you have to make a profit. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're exploiting anybody. It just means that you took in more than you spent. That's all. That's all
Exactly.
it means.
Exactly.
But that's another point. I'm never going to forget this story that he's currently running for mayor of New Orleans right now. But at one time, he told this story of how this young entrepreneur was going through the neighborhood, passing out flyers, advertising his business, and he had a nice car, and he rolled up on these gentlemen, and he gave them a flyer. He told them all about themselves. Then he got back in his car and left. And one of the men said, "Are you going to support him?" He said, "No. He ain't gonna buy another Cadillac with my money." But he wasn't exploiting anybody. But we somehow have built it in our minds that if somebody who looks like us is making money, they're exploiting us or they're stealing, and we're not supposed to charge a profit. When we start using words like support black business instead of just saying I'm going to purchase from a black entrepreneur or a black business, we say things like support, and which makes it sound like it's a nonprofit organization. We support nonprofit organizations,
Mhm.
but when it comes to business, we purchase from businesses. We don't just support them, but
Mhm.
we use those kind of words, and we always make it seem like we're doing an entrepreneur a favor by
Yeah.
purchasing from them or supporting them.
Oh, you said so much there that I want to comment on. I think you're really kind of speaking to also the importance of definitions. When you think about capitalism, that's really about private ownership and the pursuit of private ownership to yield
Yes.
profitability. That's the context of capitalism that we live in. And it nurtures and breeds individualism. It breeds a scarcity mindset. And it really makes people think that it's a dog eat dog mentality. It's not something that we can all win together. It's dependent upon someone else's exploitation, the extraction of resources from people, and the disassociation of that person from their value in order for you to be profitable. That's capitalism. Whereas in the framework that I offer up in the book, Black capitalism is really about how can we, as Black people, reposition ourselves within the economic system in order to produce social good. And so it's still an acknowledgement of the fact that we are in capitalism. That's not going to change anytime soon. But it's also the repositioning, which is both a kind of mental practice to some of what we've been talking about before, that you don't have to be white in order to be wealthy, that we have to change
Yes.
our relationship to money. But then also, kind of strategically, what is it going to take for us to kind of get unified, be working in community to get access to capital and capital accumulation in a way that's going to create more positive outcomes for us collectively? Black capitalism is about community, not individualism. It's about not producing harm, because you can certainly have examples whereby there are Black people participating in capitalism and they're reproducing the harms of capitalism. We see
Yeah.
examples of that all the time. It's a very different thing to be a Black capitalist, though, because your bottom line is no harm that's being done. It's about how can you be both profitable, secure the bag, but then also secure the people and make sure that people are taken
Right.
care of, people aren't treated poorly. And so that's so much of the kind of ethos. But then also, we talk about beliefs, and you know, if we think that because a Black person is wealthy, they've exploited someone else or they've done all these harms of capitalism, yes, that might be the case. But there's also examples and a blueprint for how we do it differently. And when you talk about how we support Black businesses, as an entrepreneur myself, I've seen how other Black people will kind of treat supporting my business as a favor. But the reality is if you're a Black entrepreneur and you have a business, the standard is excellence. You're not
Yes.
doing me
Yes.
any favors. It is
Yes.
business to be considered with respect and with the same kind of mentality that you would treat any other business. If the
Yes.
standard is the same, you're not doing any favors, And so to your point, I think that's so spot on. We have to change our mindsets and our beliefs about how we even talk about supporting one another, how we show up for one another and invest in each other.
Yes.
Well, and while we are trying hand wringing or dismissing it or trying to uh, throw shade on it, other groups are practicing it all around us, and we're being excluded. And I can give you three quick examples. One, and I know you all, the convenience stores in Black neighborhoods are not owned by us. I mean, they're mostly, well, it could be any nationality, but it's not us. It might be a rare exception here and there, but people from other countries, they figure out they can move into Black neighborhoods, and they don't necessarily have to have quality, but they provide essentials that people need, and they might have bars on the windows and the doors or whatever, but they have figured out how to exchange and provide goods that people need, and they charge a big markup for it, but their costs are higher. And there's two
Right.
other ones that I have observed just traveling, and especially traveling on road trips, traveling from coast to coast. Um, your average roadside motel, and by that I mean Super 8, Days Inn, those. They're owned by a lot of them are owned by a family named Patel, which is from India. If you go in there, average, next time you go on a road trip, if you don't you don't even have to even get a room. Just go and see who owns the place. They're owned by a family called Patel, which is from India. They quietly took over that whole, from coast to coast. The lower end motels are owned by Indians. And the gas stations, unless it's Buc-ee's, like in Texas, or Love's, or one of the big ones, they're owned by people from the Middle East. They somehow they have money, investment from there, or they just work together. They quietly take over these industries while we're arguing among ourselves about why does she have to charge 5 cents more than the other people?
Yeah. Yeah. The train has left the station, and we are left behind because we have to get unified. And we all have different orientations when it comes to our economic identity. Some people might be capitalist, some people are anti-capitalist, some people are socialist. Everyone has an opinion, but it's really imperative in such a time as this, in this kind of political moment that we're living in, that we lock arms and align on unified action. We got to put aside all of this debate and get to a point of how do we actually show up for this moment in a way that's going to create collective and communal ownership for us. Because when you mention the example, I live in New York. Across the street, there's a new corner store that came. No one's questioning it. It's an expectation that it's not going to be Black owned.
Right.
There's a problem, and so I think it's got to be to get to the point around, okay, we've debated plenty, and that's been kind of central for us, but now it's what's the action that we're taking together?
Yes. And we need to not only do it when there's a political moment.
Yeah.
It needs to be ongoing to where we shouldn't let down just because whoever we think should be in the White House is there. Because once you let the air out of the tire, it's gone. And then you have to pump it up again. It's hard to do that. It needs to be an ongoing effort. It needs to be a lifestyle, a way of living. It can't just be emotional based on being mad at somebody else.
Right.
That's not the way that is going to work long term. And my very first book that I wrote, it came out in 2008. So the title is Why African Americans Can't Get Ahead and How We Can Solve It with Group Economics. So I've been studying this issue for many, many years. I went back in history and looked at some of the different efforts at collective economics and why they didn't last, why some of them didn't work. A lot of times it's emotional. And this is not an emotional exercise. it is a cerebral exercise. It has to be a
Mhm.
thinking exercise, not because you're mad at somebody or mad at some people or mad at who's in the White House. That should not have anything to do with it. It has to be something that you do intentionally, that you do, that you have a plan to do it.
Yeah.
And we can sometimes be difficult, and I admit that, not me, because I always operate with excellence. But some people, sometimes, sometimes we can make it hard,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
we have to figure out how to work through those things. Sometimes our output is good, but our reliability is not that great. That happens.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
Rhonda, you need to take your mute off so we can hear what you're saying.
Oh shoot, I didn't realize I was just agreeing with you.
But I really, resonate with what you're saying around we our approach is really emotion based sometimes. And I think that's where it's important to be sensitive to kind of the economic traumas that our community and people in our community hold. Because again, it's when you're thinking about the story of capitalism and how we've landed within that, something that comes to mind for me when I was, endeavoring to write the book, I came across this visual, and it's a picture of a man standing in front of a graffiti wall, and it says, "Every day I wake up on the wrong side of capitalism." And I
Mm,
thinking for a lot of our people, we've woken up day after day on the wrong side of capitalism. And it creates
yes.
kind of emotional, kind of intergenerational economic trauma that we're having to sift through. And there's the emotions that are attached to that. And so we hold space for that. But then to your point, how can we transition to really thinking about it in a strategic sense, in a cerebral sense?
Yes.
Because that's what's going to really start to make the difference, get us out of this like debating, but really around strategy and tactics for this moment.
Mhm. And you provide some strategies for how we can get out of this mindset in the book.
Yeah, I do. I do. And I think that if you think about capitalism as a pie, I believe that everyone's got a slice of the pie. Some slices are bigger than others on account of, our life chances and choices. But we've all got a part to play. We've all got a seat at the table. And it's certainly the case for our people that our orientation, especially historically, it's changing now, but historically has been from the vantage point of a consumerist approach, where we have lacked access to private ownership. And so, how we show up in the kind of capitalism game, if you will, is through consuming. But there's
Right.
agency in that still. You see what the impact can be of economic boycotts, or when we choose to even engage in old school money lending practices. For example, susus. Those are a really
Mm,
powerful way
I've
to,
heard of the susus.
yes, come together, invest into a pool of money on a regular cadence. One person within that kind of group will then get all of the funds that are part of the susu to use those excess resources for whatever they need. The next week or the next cadence, the next person gets it. So they're very kind of communal, grassroots ways to really think about economic empowerment and economic power building from a community context. But I think it's also important, and another kind of framework that I outline in the book is around when you think about like the soft life trend or the Black woman luxury trend, which especially when it comes to the soft life is really focused on its intention around rest as resistance to hustle culture, to the demands that capitalism places on us, especially as Black women, where we
Mm,
carry the burden of taking care of other people before we take care of ourselves even, and we see the kind of physical, mental, and even spiritual effects that has on us. But even to participate in the soft life movement in its more kind of fancier expressions, that still is an expression of capitalism because it requires excess resources to even
right.
that
Participate.
to
Yeah.
participate. But then what happens sometimes is we disassociate that expression and that participation from capitalism itself. You talked earlier, Gwen, about to be an entrepreneur, that's an expression of capitalism. But what we'll do sometimes is we'll say, oh, I'm anti capitalist. let's dismantle capitalism. And yet we use our iPhones, we're using Apple products, we're consuming in certain ways. So to a degree, it's like, how do we do the work of self-awareness to even say, what am I invested in? What are the things I want for myself and my financial future? And
Right, right.
reckon with the participation that we have in capitalism to then kind of open up our minds about, okay, let me get real with the reality of my life and what I'm wanting and how I can do things in a way that's going to create more opportunities for communal uplift within that participation.
Well, this has been a very, very enlightening and more in-depth discussion than we often do because a lot of our authors write fiction. So, but this was a great discussion, and we're going to give away the arc of your book. And the question that I had, you did answer it at the beginning, but some people might not have been listening. So, to get a copy of Black Capitalist, answer the question. The author, Dr. Rachel. Her mother immigrated here from what African country? And if you get the answer right, put it in the chat, and the first person to answer it correctly will get their copy of the art. It's very. I didn't read the whole thing because I didn't want to bend back the spine of it, but it's very, very interesting. So thank you so much for being a guest on Black Office Matter TV.
Thank you so much for having me. Also, is it your birthday? I see the crown. I
Oh,
love it. I
well,
just
we both our birthdays are 9 days apart. So
oh,
Yes.
when it's the week between, the Tuesday between, we wear our crowns. So my
oh,
birthday was Friday. Rhonda's is Sunday.
wow. Well, happy birthday to you both. And thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
having
much.
me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being a guest on the show. Have a great night.
Bye.
Wow,
Okay.
Curtis is so fast. I didn't even have a chance to post the question yet, and he already posted the answer. Dang, Curtis, how do you do this? You're gonna have to give us a hint as to how you do this so fast
he,
every week.
he beat Lydia just by like a hair, but
Yes.
Curtis, you get your copy of Black Capitalist, the art. This is the advanced reading copy. So, for some reason tonight, all of our first three guests are all making reference to Africa in some way, shape, or form. Uh, so, uh, Nikkolas Smith is no different. His book is called The History of We, and it's a children's book, but it talks about our all origins in Africa for the entire human race. And he does it on a child's level. So he's going to tell us what made him think of this and how he's able to do this. Nikkolas, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
And I see some illustrations in your background. I assume you wrote and illustrated the book.
I did. This is my 10th picture book, but it's actually my first hand-painted picture book.
Oh,
So
That
it's
is
all
amazing and beautiful. I
thank
wow.
you,
love the detail.
thank you. Acrylic on canvas. The canvases are pretty big. I mean, usually they're about 3 feet by 3 feet, 4 by 5. This is my studio here in Los Angeles. I live in Leimert Park in Los Angeles, and so I do all my paintings here.
Leimert
Oh,
Park is a pretty historic area. Do you get a lot of your inspiration from your neighborhood?
Yeah, it's I love it here. I've been here for about 3 years. Moving down from Koreatown, and it's just there's so much culture, there's so much community.
Yes.
Never you can't go like half a block without, being inspired by something culturally. And sometimes I can literally hear like they'll have like drum circles in Lombard Park Square over there, and it's just like you
Really?
can just hear it from down the block. So
See, that
yeah.
reminds me of New Orleans. We have the drum
Hmm.
circles, and that happen in Congo Square every Sunday.
Yeah, very similar.
hmm.
Nice.
So tell us about the history of we and what it's about and what was your inspiration for writing the book and illustrating the book. I'd love to see some of the
Absolutely.
illustrations too. Um,
Thank
You can either show us on the in the book itself, or we have the shared screen option already selected. So if you wanted to show us any that might be on your laptop, you're welcome to do that as well. It's up
Oh,
to you.
great. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, Wonderful. So let me see if I can show this really quickly here.
Okay.
Um,
Lovely.
can you see? Let's see.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, just one second here. So can you see that right
Oh
there?
yeah. Very
I see
well.
it.
Beautiful.
Okay, so the thing about this book, I mean, it is kind of like the out of Africa, like we all come from Africa kind of book that I always wanted to make. And doing this research, I went back 200,000 years. I mean, so the origins of humanity, modern humans, it goes back 233,000 years to Ethiopia, Homo in Ethiopia. And literally every single person on the earth can be traced back to this woman that you see. I call her Mawa or Queen Mother. She is the earliest known modern human. And the designation of modern human, it basically just means um the the first humans with the same skeletal structure as us, the same brain capacity as us. So these modern humans, they spoke sentences with nouns and verbs. They laughed and cried. They invented amazing things. They did wonderful things, right? So I wanted to really just go back to that time in humanity because I felt like this era of humanity, it's never been properly visually documented. Like when I was growing up, so I grew up in Texas,
Okay,
and when
we're in
I
Texas. We're in Texas.
Houston, Texas.
Okay, well that's where I am in Houston.
Hey, shout out
What part?
Houston.
Yeah, what part of Houston?
I love it. So I ended up going like when I was really young from the city to Humble to Spring.
Okay.
So I grew up mainly in Spring. Yeah.
Okay. I'm close to Spring.
Okay,
FM
cool.
1960. So that I mean
That's right.
area. Yeah.
So I was just last month I was just at the Barnes and Noble on 1960 Champions
Yeah,
and
that's
just kind
5 minutes
doing a
from my
big,
house.
yeah, amazing. We had like a
Look
little
at you. Look at
like history of
y'all
week
having a
kickoff.
family reunion.
I know, right? Hey, cuz. Um so yeah. I mean, the funny thing about it is like the kind of the point of the book is to remind all of humanity that like we're all an extended family of cousins, right? Like we kind of like, at some point Africans decided to leave the continent of Africa, and traveling tribes are responsible for, all of us, right? So we populated the world, right? And so, if you kind of start to see the beginning of the book, you'll see like there's this lush valley. It's Amokibish in Ethiopia, and it's just starts with that question of like, what did the beginning look like? Like
Mm,
when I was growing up in Texas, we had history books that talked about they talked about the cradle of civilization, right? And they talked about Mesopotamia and someplace outside of Africa, which is where they said that's where they told us that this is where civilization started, right?
right, right.
And it was always like, oh, 10,000 years ago. And, that was the cradle of civilization, right? But if you actually look at, I would say, 200 to 200,000 years before that, there's like a massive chunk of time that was never really documented, never put in the history books. And we kind of probably know why, because it all points back to how humanity really innovated and really, became, a thriving society, right? And so, with the book, I want to kind of get into what really was that like? I mean, We did a lot of things. I talk about like we dreamed and we spoke, we shared and we healed, we sang and danced and built and explored. We lived.
Right.
So we did all of these things. We literally, were able to figure out how to continue as a human society, right? And so I go back to the earliest everything, like the first known artifacts, the first known art artifacts were found in the Blombos Cave in South Africa. And so I want to visualize, well, what did the first artists look like, right? They literally had to create paint by crushing rocks and mixing it with water. And they started to tell stories on cave walls. And this was, the Stone Age. This is the Middle Paleolithic era. So, obviously, like whenever it's kind of depicted in movies and stuff, like for some
Hmm.
reason they depict like the caveman, first of all, as like a white person, which doesn't make any sense. But then also maybe as like dumb or less intelligent or whatever. But this is the Middle Paleolithic era. This is humanity as it was when we had the same brain capacity that we have now. So these were intelligent people, and they told stories visually. The Still Bay people of South Africa, 75,000 years ago, were taking shells from the shore and they were braiding grass and they were making necklaces and they were fashionable. They were, braiding their hair. They were doing all these different things. And it's like, I want people to be able to see this, right? This is what humanity was before it was anything else, right? And
Right.
so I go and talk about like, literally the first musicians, the first dancers, right? The first inventors. They were braiding nets. They were figuring out how to literally invent glue from plant resin to be able to make spears, to be able to, hunt. They were literally architects, designing and building, architecture, huts, and different things, and trying to figure out how to um, block out the winds and the rain and things like that. Literally figuring out how to do agriculture and harvesting wheat for the first time and figuring out how to live off of, cereals and different grains like that. Figuring out how to go from plant to plant, like the cave of pigeons in Morocco. And this was over 65,000 years ago that they were figuring out how to go from plant to plant and see which one of these plants can actually, we can figure out how to grind it up and create some sort of like antibacterial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory cream, right? And so they were doing this like a long time ago in Africa. And when I talk to young kids about all of these things, all these inventions, it's just their eyes get so big. They're like, I can't believe like we've been doing this for a long time. Like we've been doing this for so long, and it all started in Africa. And these stories, they don't for some reason they don't end up in the history books, right?
Right.
And so I take them through like the Congo, the Ashango bone from about, I believe about 45,000 years ago. The Ashango bone was the oldest math calculator that they were starting to use to figure out the phases of the moon, starting to map out the stars. Literally the first swimmers. I did an art piece for Ava DuVernay for her film Origin a couple years
Mm.
ago. And that was one of the moments where I was really like I kind of had this spark for creating this book because I created some art of um, this young man named Al Bright. And so with Al Bright, he was born in the 1940s. Um, he actually was not allowed to go to the swimming pool and swim, with his baseball championship teammates because of racism, right? And so there's so many stories of
Oh,
young
wow.
black kids like him their parents, their grandparents who never were allowed to go to the swimming pool, never allowed to swim, right? Never learned how to swim, afraid of the swimming pool, right? And I just wished that I could have told like him or all these other black kids, do you realize that like the very first swimmer in human history looked like you? Like the first swimmers, like we had to invent swimming, right? Somebody had to come up with that, right? And
Right.
so I talk about that in the book. I talk about the first explorers. We were literally hollowing out trees and creating sailboats. And, by 60,000 years ago, we were making it to Southeast Asia and we were making it to Australia by boat. And like we were really great explorers, right? And so I wish I could have seen, when I was young, I wish I could have seen explorers who look like me, because
Mhm.
that is literally factually what happened. And so this whole book, it really is like a slice of human history.
It really is.
It is a very factual piece. I call it a National Geographic documentary in a way. So it really gets into all of that, exactly the way it happened. It was this entire book was vetted by the Leakey family, who's one of the top paleontologists in the world. And so it's very factual. It has everything backed up by science and research. And one of the great things is that I'm able to kind of go through at the end of the book and give a timeline of history, and really like pinpoint all those specific places, like the Cave of Pigeons, the Blombos Cave in South Africa, all these different places, and just kind of like pinpoint so that everybody can start to do some more research about it and study all these different people, the Stillbay people, the Moroccans, all these different groups
Hmm.
from throughout history. And so, but I do believe that I just feel like what this is it is what I call educational justice. So like all of that, if you can see that red arrow right there, that's like the 10,000 year mark where they told us when we were young that that's where civilization began, and they literally like disregarded the 200,000 years before that. And so the entire book is that 200,000 year span. I believe it is educational justice, right? Like we have to kind of get back to what was that actually happened that helped us get to this point where we are today. And so it is, that's why I really wanted to kind of pinpoint like that out of Africa theory, which it is the prevailing theory. It is literally how paleontologists have kind of pointed to that this is when we left Africa and this is where we went. And this is when we got there. And so all of those different paths are kind of laid out in the book. So yeah, that's
That's
that's in a
fantastic.
nutshell why I made the book and why I feel like it's super important.
Well, it's
That's
certainly
amazing. Yeah.
groundbreaking. And
Thank you.
now, did you travel to any of these places where you're able to do that from the book, or did you use mostly research?
Mostly research. I haven't been able to get out to like, South Africa. I definitely want to go to Tanzania and see, I literally they have dig sites that are like, you know, 2 million year old rocks that were, like certain types of artifacts that they found that they've dug up. Definitely want to go to the Blumbles Cave in South Africa. That's on my list of things to see. So I haven't been able to see those yet, but I did a ton of research. There's so many. It's interesting, like how available all this information is. The Middle Paleolithic era, the information is everywhere. It's all out there for people to see. So there's like a lot of different journals and books, like Maeve Leakey, who I was telling about the Leakey family. Maeve Leakey has books like Sediments in Time, tons of articles about what life was like. And I think one of the most interesting facts that I did come across is the fact that, you know, it was literally that long ago that we did have that the brain capacity that we have now. So we were, you know, doing the same things we're doing now, just a long time ago, right? So that, and then especially with the timeline, um, just being able to chart out exactly when we left Africa, and literally I kind of document like, okay, so when did our skin tone start to get a little bit lighter and lighter? And it's I mean, if you're looking at like the 90,000 year ago mark when we left, I mean, we were in Asia and Europe and all these other places for a good 80,000 years before the skin tone started to get very light. And, you know, maybe it was only about 9,000 years ago that you know, skin started to get pale or white. And that's all just because of the fact that, you know, some of our ancestors went to colder climates that didn't have a lot of sunlight.
Hmm.
Um, and for those reasons, whatever reasons, you know, we end up, you know, trying to split ourselves up in all these, you know, quote unquote races. And then there's racism. So it really, the book kind of like points to the fact that it really is a very trivial thing that we even argue about skin color because we're literally all the same race. So, um,
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
It's a couple of things. One, people acknowledge it, but then they dismiss it. When people, now that we can all have our DNA tested, at a reasonable cost,
mhm.
everybody knows that they their roots originated in Africa, but it always
Yeah,
gets like dismissed. Well,
Right.
well, of course we start in Africa, but then they just move on,
right,
So
Well, they think Africa is just one big old country. It's
yeah,
not a
that's
right,
true
continent full of
too.
many countries.
But they don't even embrace the one big old country. They just dismiss it and say, of course we all man originated, but then all the depictions they do of the first man are not black. They're not brown or black people, and they would
right,
have to be. And the Bible even references it in the Garden of Eden.
Right.
So, it's there, but it's dismissed.
Well,
And
yeah,
one thing
they
I
have
like
to
about
say
the
civilization
okay.
started when Caucasian people started doing things. That's like
right.
Yeah.
when the clock started. That's the way it's measured. When you were talking about Mesopotamia and
Mhm.
Hmm.
that's how it's measured. But go ahead, Rhonda.
No, I was just gonna say one thing I like about the book is that it opens kids' eyes to so many things all at one time.
Mhm.
Um, art, storytelling, culture, history. And then they're learning more about who they are as people. So, I mean, I just see this book being able to accomplish so many things with just one reading. And I wonder, is that something that you had in mind when you started this project, or did it evolve into that as you were working on it?
I definitely had it in mind in the sense that, like I was saying, like I wish I could tell, you know, certain black kids like, hey, like the first swimmers look like you, the first explorers look like you.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it started off with just a few things. Like I wish I could I just want to show like a whole, you know, a whole ocean full of explorers who are black. And from there, I didn't realize at the time, but I needed to branch into pretty much every area. So, you know, I was like, okay, well then let's go into medicine and, you know, let's
Right.
go into fashion and you know, the first artist. And so it just naturally had to go into every other part because it's literally like we invented everything. And it was such a long time, literally like, you know, even after we left Africa, it was a good 75, 80,000 years of just more developing and inventing and doing all these things. Before there was any other person that could be considered like non-black, right?
Mhm.
And so yeah, so it started off as kind of one thing and then it just branched into everything.
Yeah, I
Love it.
can see an amazing opportunity, and I don't know if you've already explored this, but for animation
Mm,
around the book, just take the
yeah.
whole book and make it an animated, maybe hour
Yeah,
that children
that's
and
always a
adults could enjoy.
right. That's definitely a something that I always have in the back of my mind. Like, yeah, what are different ways that we can explore how to continue telling the story um through everything from like, graphic novel to animated, maybe TV show, film, all these different types of things. And there's just like a limitless, you know, areas to start to be able to like retell the story or branch off into new because there's like literally if you have hundreds of thousands of years of history, then there's so many stories to tell. And
Right. You're not going to run
Yeah,
out.
right.
yeah, it's like it's never ending. So
You
yeah.
have to have a season one, episode 1 through 10.
Right. 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 Absolutely.
So, when did you pick up the Illustrator bug? Like, did you know at 5 years old? Was that you? Was it just in you from a young age?
It was. I've been making art my whole life. And yeah, just I always whatever I saw on TV, I would try to create cartoons and whatever. And it's just been, it's that's how it always was. But I wasn't the type of kid to say like, oh, I want to be an artist when I grow up. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And um I ended up going to well, I went to Hampton University in Virginia, HBCU, and I studied architecture because, kind of a
You
combination
said
of art and
you said Hampton?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm from
Yes, we
Newport
know
Hampton.
News.
Hampton.
I think everybody on the show tonight
Wow,
has had some kind of connection to
that's amazing.
Virginia. Yeah, I'm from Newport News. I live in Houston now. I mean, but all of my formative years were there.
Amazing.
Newport News. Yeah.
Amazing. So yeah, I went from Houston to Hampton Roads in 2003 and then ended up going straight to California. I became an Imagineer doing Disneyland architecture
Oh, okay.
from starting from 2008 to 2019. So that was 11 years and now I'm a full-time freelance illustrator.
Love
So
it.
yeah.
Oh, wow. It's wonderful.
So
So
you
how many?
illustrate for other people's books too?
Yeah, so I have a few other ones like I Am Ruby Bridges.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I'm familiar with
Written
that
by the
one.
amazing historical
Yes.
legendary Ruby Bridges.
Hmm.
And so there's sometimes it's books like that or
Okay.
like superhero stuff like Captain America. This actually came out in February. Captain America,
Okay.
Hero Looks Like
It
You.
looks like you.
So sometimes I'll illustrate. My next book is written by Sam Cooke, the legendary Sam Cooke. So a change
Oh,
is gonna
wow.
come.
Oh,
So like kind of his classic song. But I'm adding a story that goes with the music. So sometimes
Oh, you have to
I'll
keep us posted
illustrate.
on that.
Yeah, so that comes out in September. Very excited, first week of September. And I feel like I mean I definitely love like doing both, like writing and illustrating, but sometimes there's some stories that I just have to like if I get an email that says, "Would you like to illustrate Ruby Bridges' book?" I'm like, absolutely. I would
Yeah, who's
love to
going to
do
turn that
yeah.
down?
that. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Well,
absolutely.
Nicholas, this has been an amazing story. Just the whole
Thank
thing.
you.
Your book, your personal story, just the whole thing. It's just
Thank
I
amazing.
you.
agree.
Mhm. I had read about what the book was about, but I didn't know exactly what you put in there. And I'm so glad that I had did the screen share so we could really see everything and the audience could. So
Right.
congratulations on the amazing
I mean, because you
talent.
could have described it, but it's a
Right,
whole different feel to actually
Yeah, you
see
have
it.
to see it. You have to
right,
see it. Yeah,
right.
for sure.
So just amazing work. Well, congratulations and continued success with the book because it just came out. When did it come out? Recently. Came out recently.
Yeah, it just came out. And so just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I do consider it a picture book. I really don't necessarily say a children's book, but like I think it's for all ages, you know.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
the whole family can gather around it and learn from it. So um check it out. It's available wherever books are sold. So,
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the show and
absolutely. Thank you for
congratulations
having me.
again. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a great
Thank you.
one.
Thank you. Take care.
Good night. Okay, all of our guests had some so far have had some connection to Africa in their books, their backgrounds, or their stories. So our final guest is with BK Royston Publishing, which is one of the
Hmm.
partners of the show. And he was on the show in October of last year, but he has a new book out. So he's back now. I've got two log-ons. So let's see which one is the right one. And uh, his name is Michael Young, even though it's spelled two different ways on the screen, but uh,
I think one might have been a typo.
I think so. So we're going to find out. Oh, there he is. Michael, welcome back to Black Authors Matter TV. You need to unmute. Okay.
Okay, you got me?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, loud and clear.
Hello, thank you for having me back.
Oh, well, you're welcome. And you have a new book. Now, the one behind you, which one is that? That's some
What-
Dark
the
Side of Desire.
yes, the Dark Side of Desire. That
Okay.
was book number 7. I just released book number 8.
Well,
That's
Oh,
our
okay.
finished scope.
congratulations.
Thank you.
So you continue to write, and it's Winter's Cold Kiss. Do you have a
Yes,
copy
yes, I
of
do.
it?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. So that's your the proof, because I see that proof line, that
Yes.
KDP proof line that you get when they send you your book. So
Yeah.
congratulations. When did the book come out?
Well, it actually did come out. I've already sold out all the copies that I had.
Oh, well,
Well, great.
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's always good. Now, where did you
Yeah.
sell these copies? Did you go out somewhere in an event to sell them?
No, actually, I sold them at my mother-in-law's boutique and at work. I have a lot of
Okay.
fans at work, and they said once it comes out, let us know. Bring one in. We want it.
Well, that's
Well, all
good.
right.
Yeah. And so it doesn't interfere with your, like, do you run into challenges at work with people knowing that you have like a side career?
No, not really. Not that many people know that I do write at work. I work at Ford, so it's like 3,000 people there.
Right.
So it's only a handful of people that actually know that I write there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you say
My boss
Ford?
just found out. I mean, all this time we've been working together, I just happened to mention something about my books. He was like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I write books." He goes, "How did I not know that?" I was like, "Because I don't talk about it at work."
Yeah, that happens to me too. Where it's somebody that I've known for a while, but I don't talk about my books. You know, because that's not what I do. That's not the only thing I do.
Yes.
Right.
So some people will know me and they say, "Why didn't I know that you had all those books?" Well, I don't talk about it. Like I don't just
Right.
talk about myself and what I'm doing when I'm having a conversation with somebody. It's different things come up. And then people ask you about, what they're about and all that. Sometimes they'll say, "Well, I want to get one." That happens.
Yes. And I never want to try to force my books on anyone by saying, "I write, you need to buy one." They'll ask
Mhm.
me what it's about, and if they want to
Right.
buy one, I'll bring them a copy.
There you go.
Now, your books
That's
are
how
in
you
what
do it.
genre, or are they in multiple genres?
I'm considered urban fiction.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, what is your idea of urban fiction? Because different people have different
That's true.
ideas about what urban fiction means.
My definition is something that may happen generally to somebody every day, but it can happen anywhere. It's something that really may not happen, but it could happen. Like it can be. I don't like to write about strippers, even though there's nothing wrong with it. People do it, but that's not. I don't. That's not in my wheelhouse. People do more than that. I don't like to write about that. I don't like to write about drug usage. I like to write about common people having common problems every day. Something more
Right. They
people
don't
can
have to be
relate to.
ducking bullets and
Yes.
having sex. I get it. I get it.
Even though
Oh,
some of that is in there, but that's not what it's focused
I mean,
on.
it doesn't have to be every 5 pages, though.
Yes. Yeah.
no. I have a conversation with about some books they like with when there's sex in some books, some people lead with that. Like on
Right.
page one, there's a graphic text. I rather mind like build up to it.
Yes.
I don't need it in my face like on page one. But some people like that, and there's a market for just about anything you want to read.
Yeah, I do give people warning when they buy it. So there is adult content in it. There is some cussing. There may be a small sex scene in some of the books, but it's
A
nothing that's
small
going to be
sex
thrown
scene.
in your face and make you turn red. And oh my God, what is no? I'm not going to do
Clutch the pearls. That's what we're
Yeah.
Oh,
Fix my
so it's
crown.
just yeah, your crown is crooked. Okay,
Yeah.
better.
It's hard to
It's
straighten it
hard
because
to do it.
everything is crooked.
Everything
I
is
mean, everything is
backwards.
opposite.
Everything is
Yeah.
opposite. So, like, if your hair's messed up and you touch one side, you think it's the other side.
Right.
It's hard on with the screen. But um, tell us about Winter's Cold Kiss and what's it about? And are any of your books, are they part of a sequel, or is everyone a standalone, or do your books work in terms of connecting to each other? You said this is book number 8. The
yes.
Winter's Cold Kiss is book number 8. Okay.
Uh, Winter's Cold Kiss is a standalone. Uh, that one's actually about a wife who finds out that her husband has been leading a double life,
Mm.
and it's not that until someone comes to their door to actually get rid of him that she finds out what he does. He says he goes to work every day as a businessman, but actually he's working for a secret government
Mm,
agency.
okay.
And to take revenge for her husband being hurt, she's decided to go after the people that hurt him.
Oh, now is her name Winter, or is that the
Yes.
season? Okay.
Yeah,
I
her
didn't
name is
know.
Winter.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if it happened in the wintertime, or but you explained that. So, do all of your books have like a hidden, like you said, somebody from the government, from a secret government agency? Is that a common thread, or is each book kind of different?
Actually, this is the only one that's a little different than the other 7. It has no connection with the other ones. But my first book is Happiness Worth the Pain. Uh, it was like the first book. People asked for more of the storyline with those characters, so I
Mhm.
made Wildest Dreams and Wildest Dreams 2. Then I have a separate story is To Protect and Serve, Panic in the City, Protect and Serve, Blood Alley. They connect. Then I have another one that's Forgotten Lies. That's kind of a standalone, but it does have a connection with the other ones. And the one that's behind me, Dark Side of Desire, you will, if you read all the other books, you will see 2 characters that was in previous books. They're not the
I
main
like
characters,
yeah.
but they make an appearance.
I
Mhm.
like when characters make an appearance because it kind of strings the books together a little bit.
Yes.
Now,
So do
how
I
did
have to read the books in order?
No, not really. but it will help if you read the first book, then Wildest Dreams 2, to see the continuation with those. But you don't have to read Is Happiness Worth the Pain to read
Right.
Protect and Serve.
Okay.
Okay. Now, how did you end up with B.K. Royston? I may have asked you this when you were on before, but for those who didn't see the previous interview, how did you get connected with B.K. Royston Publishing?
Well, after I actually had written down my book, I didn't know what to do with it. A lot of people say, "Well, you need to get a publisher." So I have no idea what to do about that. The Lord told me just to write, so I did what I was instructed to do. Then
Yes.
people started coming to me, "Well, you need to talk to BK Royston, talk to Julia." After like the third person told me that, I said, "Well, I have to find this person." And they actually gave me a card, and I sent her a copy of the book, and I asked her, "Is this worthy of being an actual book?" Excuse me. And she replied, "Yes, we can work this out. We can make it a book." And it's taking off from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Julia and BK, every time I talk to her, it seems like she's got 50 more books that she's put out. Not
Yes.
hers,
Yeah.
but she has a lot of her own
She
books
has a
too.
lot of them herself. I believe she
Yes.
has over
Yes.
100 now.
She has a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Between the people she publishes and her own books, it's a ton of books.
She covers every category too. That's something
She
I
does.
can't do.
And the good thing is that she's good people. She doesn't treat you like you're part of the machine. And that's sometimes very hard to find in this industry.
Yes.
Mhm. She says she doesn't have any children, so her what she does, what she and her husband, they're both techies, and so she said that's their children, that what their business
Right.
for the books they put out. If they don't have any actual children that they birth. So, but also she supports the show, but she also comes to the National Black Book Festival every year, and she brings some of her authors with her.
Hopefully, once I retire, I'll be able to do a little bit more traveling with her.
That'll be good.
Yeah, yeah. So, what is the setting for your books? Are they all in the same city as far as the setting? And where are you located? I
I am
didn't.
located in Louisville, Kentucky, and
Okay.
Oh,
I never name a city or actual town in any of my books because I want the readers to feel no matter where they're at, they feel like it could be somewhere close to them.
Okay, that's an interesting concept. Um, so
no,
you don't.
I like that because it it lets the reader draw in their imagination and they excuse me, they feel inside of whatever setting they have in their head. They feel
Yes.
inside of it.
Yes, in one book, I write about murders happening in the park, and they could feel like, oh, this could be the park
Okay.
down the street, or this could be the park
Right,
upstairs.
right.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting way to approach it. Um, some people create small towns
Yeah.
in their books, that don't exist, and some people utilize cities or communities that do exist as their setting. So it just depends on how the author wants to approach it.
Yes.
So, in your Winter's Cold Kiss, what's something that you want your audience to know? Like, what's one of the arcs of the book? What's one of the oh my goodness moments in the book? Without giving the spoilers away, too many.
Uh, well, once Winter gets going on her mission to try to find out who these people are, things starting to be unveiled to her that she didn't really expect. There's more people involved in this assault on her husband that she actually knew,
Mm.
and some of them are very close to her. So
Okay.
that'll be one of the moments once you get to that. That who, how they involved? Why? What? I just want
So
every
you like the twists and turns.
yes. I try to make every chapter a page turner, make you involved in something happens in every chapter where
Love
you
that.
hate to put it down.
Love that.
Okay. Now I think I remember your books aren't real they aren't real thick.
No, they're not. They're not.
Because you want people who may be intimidated by 350 pages. You want that reader. You
So
want
you
the
write
reader.
more novellas, which is about 25,000 words.
Yes. Yeah, I try not to draw out the story. I don't want to lose the reader's attention. I just try to hold your attention for an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Well, you would have to be a fast reader. How many pages? You'd have to
Yeah, because I'm about to say it's going to take me more than an hour and a half to read 25,000 words.
And I'm a fast reader, but I'm not a speed reader. You know, some people are speed readers and they can just really read like super fast, like almost like they turn pages or they scroll like they're, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they can consume it.
Well,
I don't know about
that, there's a thing now. I've not tried it at all. I only saw it on TikTok, but it's like a little gadget you can put on the book. And it'll read the book to you. It's almost like an audio book reader, but you put it on a physical book and it will read the book to you.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet. I don't know how well it works. I only saw it on TikTok. But I might try it, but I think that would take some of the fun out of it.
Yeah, well, why would you, with audiobooks so prolific now?
What I like about audiobooks is people get into it, the voices and the acting. I think this is just an AI voice reading the book to you, and I don't want to do that.
Oh, yeah, AI is doing too much in some stuff. And you have to be careful about AI because AI will spout false information if that's what they gather. See, AI is just collecting and regurgitating, not creating.
Well, that's the reason why you're supposed to, if you're using AI, you've got to read over it and you've got to give it a human touch. You cannot just say, okay, I'm done with my book. Read it, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Or a letter or whatever, email. It was something I was reading where whatever AI put out, it was completely wrong. I mean, it was just incorrect. The information was incorrect, but it was done by AI. And I feel like it's going to make some people so lazy to the point where they're not reviewing it, whatever they're collecting. They're just putting it out there. We're in a brave new world now with this AI. I don't know exactly where it's going to go.
Do you use AI at all? And I'm not talking about to write your book, but you can use AI as an assistant when you're trying to brainstorm or if you're trying to do research. So there's nothing wrong with using some AI, just to the extent in which you use it.
Oh, no AI for me. Everything I wanted directly out of my imagination and my brain. So every word I put down has come from me.
Yeah, I feel like that too. I use it for research, but then you also have to double check because it will gather information that's out there that's not correct.
Right.
It just depends on, what you ask it or whatever. But I think it's a useful tool. I reference back to one of the classic films, Terminator, the original one. And the year that the machines take over is in that movie is 2029. When that movie came out, it was in the 80s. And 2029 seemed like so far in the future that it would never happen. Well, that's 4 more years from now.
Well, in 2029, they're going to be reading my book and Michael's book and your book, Glenn.
In the movie, if you ever hear anything called Skynet, run.
Yeah,
there you go.
Skynet. Yeah, now I wanted to ask you about what you like to watch, because with you doing the secret government agency angle, what kind of shows do you like to watch? Are you watching shows where the government or secret agencies is part of the plot line?
Some shows I do. I used to watch CSI. I watch anything like the old show Pose. I love the story, the written story of that, and I can watch anything from BMF that's on now, or I may watch old show like In the Heat of the Night.
Okay,
Just
the
whatever
show or the
catches
movie?
my attention.
The show or the
The
movie?
TV show.
Okay.
Yeah, because it comes on every day.
Okay. Yeah, it's syndicated somewhere every day, I think. I've never watched the show.
It's
I
pretty
saw
good.
the movie, not when it was originally out, but that movie was a classic film. And so I never, and see, I saw Archie Bunker and All in the Family, the guy, Carol,
Yeah.
what's his first name, Carol, or last name, Carol? He's in the heat of the night.
Yes.
So have you ever watched 24?
I did. I believe I watched the first season of it. Then something else came out that got my attention, and I started watching it.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I think I've binged that one more than any other show. And now I'm re-binging Scandal,
My wife
which,
loves
which
Scandal.
is
I don't know how
about
many
a
times she's seen
secret
that.
government agency.
Well, during COVID, I binge watched How to Get Away with Murder from the very beginning to the very end. I did not realize how many twists and turns were in there because I didn't really watch it when it was popular.
Okay, that's not one that I watched.
I watched it
I didn't
every
watch
week.
it either, but I binged watched a lot of stuff
During
during COVID.
COVID.
Yeah, couldn't go anywhere.
Now I thought, wow, I thought Rhonda, you would be like working on your next epic book, your
I
next
did work on another book. I
500
worked on
page
trust.
book.
I worked on trust. I worked on magazines. I
Oh, you did
worked
your
on
anthology.
yeah, I did the anthology. I worked on a lot of stuff during COVID. So,
But you
yeah,
were still binging. Yeah, if it's a good show, I prefer to binge. I don't like watching stuff week to week.
Right.
I'd rather wait till it's finished and then binge the
Mm,
season. It's just easier.
right. Well, Michael, what do you have planned next?
The next book I'm going to bring out is called Tales from the Couch. That is about a man. First part of it is going to be a man going to see a psychiatrist. He's told that he has to go see the psychiatrist because of the way he treats women. He started off in his early age treating women very well, but as his relationships went on, he started treating them worse and worse and worse and worse. And he's trying to figure out why is this happening? What is the root cause of it?
So did his heart get broken? That's normally what causes it in a man.
He's gone through several relationship traumas.
Okay.
Well, I think it's really pretty cool that you just finished book 8 and you already have your concept for book 9 down.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and it's totally different.
Yes, half of it's already finished. I get in moods where I just write and write and write. I had 3 books already finished, but I'm just now putting them out.
Are you a night writer or a morning writer?
Really, after I get off from work, I spend so much time just working with my hands. I have time to let my mind wander. So as soon as I come home, sit down, I just hit the keyboard.
And did you let your wife read your work as you're going, or do you wait till you're finished and let her read it?
Well, I tell her about the idea first, and once I finish with it, I let her read it. She has the first approval. If she likes it, then I'll send it to her.
Okay. Now, is she honestly telling you how is her approach to telling you if it needs to be some changes or if it's great or needs work or whatever?
Once she reads it, she'll tell me, well, you need to change this in the book. You don't need to let this situation happen. You need to change this character's name or you need to expand on this. And I value her opinion. Actually, that's my wife on the cover of the new book.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh,
and that's really good that she's so supportive.
The show to tell us that little tidbit.
Right. but that's very good that she's so supportive of your writing career.
It is. It is. It's a good.
Without her, I would not be writing. She's the one who convinced me to do it.
All right.
That's great.
I know she's holding the camera, and you had to say that.
Oh no, she's upstairs.
Yeah, that's good. Not some spouses are involved in the writing as far as reading. Some are just encouragers, and some are just detached. It just depends on
Right.
the spouse. You never know. My husband or my daughter, they've never read any of my books. I told them I'm so hurt. And you know what they tell me? We live with you. We know what you said. No, you don't. You have to read. You don't know everything that's in my mind. But that's the excuse they give. And sometimes I will read, like they'll sit and listen to me as I read a chapter. But that's
Okay, well,
after
that's
the book
good.
is already out. That's after the book is already
Well, your target audience is never your family anyway.
No,
So
you're right.
I love my family, and I'm happy if they read one of my books, but they're not my target audience. So I don't
Right.
even bother them. Like, if you read it, you read it. If you don't, you don't. I have some family members who know I'm an author, but haven't read not one book. It's all good.
Yes.
Because I didn't write for one particular audience, which is my family.
No, you're right. So at least I'm not alone. Sometimes I'm telling you, if you read it, you would know these facts. It's in my book. If you had read it, sometimes I tell them that. But anyway, Michael, congratulations on your latest book.
Thank you. Thank you.
And your next project. Show us your book cover again and let the audience know where they can get the book.
Winter's Cold Kiss.
And
All
that's
right.
his wife on the cover.
Yes. Come on, baby. Yes.
So how can they order the book?
You can order it on Amazon, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. If you send me your information, I will mail one to you. If you're in Louisville, Kentucky, you can go to Pretty Woman's Boutique. I have copies in there. That's my mother-in-law's and my wife's boutique. And
Okay.
I'm going to work on another bookstore. I need to talk to her and see how I can get my books in her bookstore here locally. I'm expanding a little bit.
Wonderful.
Okay, that's great. All right. Well, have a great night and thanks for being back on the show.
All right, thank you. Thank you, ladies. Really appreciate it.
Well, I enjoyed talking with you. You have a great night and best wishes to you.
You too.
Okay. Well, that's another amazing episode of the show. For those who tuned in late, we're wearing our birthday crowns because our birthdays are 9 days apart. And mine was Friday. Rhonda's is Sunday. Rhonda, happy birthday.
Thank you. And happy birthday to you, Gwen. Even though I already told you on Facebook. I
You
just didn't
did.
I wanted to tell you in person.
I got so many, I got over 400 like birthday wishes. And if anybody's watching the show and I haven't responded, I am actually going in one by one saying thank you. But it takes a while to do over 400.
Yes.
I'm only halfway through. So maybe by Rhonda's birthday, I'll be completely finished. Anyway.
And maybe by 4th of July, I'll be finished. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. But I don't want to. Some people cut it off so people can't post. But I don't mind people telling me happy birthday. And some people I haven't heard from in like,
right. It's a great way to hear from people.
It's a great way to hear from people. Well, we won't have a show next week because the week of the 4th of July, we don't have a show. And that allows people to have fun with their families and allows us to do the same. So we'll see you all back again on July 8th or 7th, whatever that one after.
I'm checking the calendar. I'm checking the calendar. July 8th.
July 8th, we'll be back with another amazing episode of Black Authors Matter TV. Rhonda, you already did what I should have done. Thank you. So we're signing off. We're signing off, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. I'm Gwen Richardson saying good night.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Have a wonderful evening and a great week.
Thank you for tuning in, and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.